The vibe is revived. Welcome to Don't Kill the Vibe 2.0, I guess 2.0 in a new era. I'm Zel McCarthy.
And I am Katie Bein.
Katie, it's so nice to be here with you.
It is so nice, Zel. I've missed you and I missed this.
I miss this too. You know, the last time we had an episode of Don't Kill the Vibe, it was in a very dark moment in America's history. Do you recall when that was?
I recall it was the day after the 2016 election.
Well, we did a few episodes after that too, but that was the turning point for sure.
I think that I maybe blacked out in that sort of moment of American trauma.
Yeah, I've been blacked out for 4 years, so
that's actually why we haven't done the show.
Yeah, Alex, our creator and producer, reminded me that last episode, which is at the end of 2016, I said something to the effect of 2017 is going to be great, guys. I can feel it. So don't come to me for your predictions of what the next year is going to be like.
2017 wasn't as bad as the years that followed.
You know, in perspective, I was right.
I don't think you were entirely wrong. I'll give you that.
Thank you. Thanks. So, what's been going on? What illegal raves have you been going to during this pandemania we're all living through?
I have not raved. I have been, I'd like to think, socially responsible. I haven't danced in mass since last February. How about you? When was your last group dance experience?
It was there was some dancing. Evan Gia, who was an electro artist, signed to Capitol. She did like a showcase at the Roxy that first weekend in March. It was the last weekend before everything got shut down. So that was the last show I saw. The night before, I was supposed to have seen Azealia Banks downtown, and she was late, very late. I think that's how we'll describe it. She was very late.
Did she show up?
I think she showed up. Yeah, she showed up. But at that point, I was gone, and then Evan Gia the next night, and then that's been it. It's been a year. So
it's been properly a year. I remember because it was March 13th that we published the dance music issue at Billboard, and no one cared because the pandemic had started and everything in the issue was essentially irrelevant, which was a little bit heartbreaking because we had worked very hard on it, but bigger things were at play. So I can't.
No. You're the real victim in all of this.
I wanted to just come on the show and say that, yes, it's me.
Yeah.
Really suffered here.
Yes. 500,000 people died, but Katie worked on an issue of Billboard magazine that no one cared about. So
no one cared.
Talk about suffering.
People had other things going on in that. It was truly the same day.
Yeah.
That everything changed. It was actually remarkable.
Yeah. Hopefully in this era with a new president, a new very old man president, we're not living in on the edge of our seats every day. But I think it'll be interesting. As a senator, Joe Biden was one of the people behind the Rave Act, which is the law that is interpreted to essentially discourage any kind of drug education or harm reduction at live events and festivals. It also has the effect of just kind of chilling the kinds of events that people can gather and hear live music at. Those are some of the byproducts. It's supposed to be discouraging the use of, fatal narcotics, but it'll be interesting to see if his administration has anything along those lines. I don't think it's on the first 100-day agenda, but
I doubt it. I mean, I think that was I can't pretend to know what Joe Biden was thinking or is thinking currently, but it seemed like he was maybe trying to do the right thing at that time in a pretty misguided way. Although I did write a story a few years ago about a mother whose daughter died of an overdose. She took a pill at a club in DC, I believe. And so in the wake of her daughter's death, the mother went on this crusade to amend the Rave Act and had tens of thousands of signatures. I'm sure you've seen this story.
Yeah, I've spoken with her also. She's an interesting figure in all this because she, you would think someone who lost their child to a drug-related incident would have a more militant stance on what the laws should be. But she seems to be very much in favor of like more responsible legislation instead.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember the specifics of her stance. Maybe you remember better than I do, but she seemed really down to earth or pragmatic about the fact that young people probably will take drugs.
Yeah.
You're never going to dare them out of that, but that there needs to be, amended laws around the approach to that by the authorities. And she really had a lot of momentum behind her, it seemed at that time. But, this was still when Biden was, the former vice president, and it never seemed to reach him, unfortunately. So
yeah, her name is Dee Dee Goldsmith. If you're interested in checking out her story, her daughter's name was Shelley. She's I haven't heard from her specifically since the election or anything, so I don't know if there are probably other people that should be lobbied instead of the president directly at this point. But it's the things that happened 30 years ago definitely have an effect 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But we can also talk about a few weeks ago in Florida, the Super Bowl weekend. It seems that has not been a super spreader Super Bowl, even though things like Diplo shows happened.
They did happen. Diplo shows and Steve Aoki shows.
Yeah.
I don't know that I should use plural. I know for sure that one set by each of those people did happen in the weekend around the Super Bowl. And many people have many thoughts on it. And I'd like to know yours to start.
Well, I think it's interesting that, Diplo's agent and management were so confident in the behaviors of Floridians to socially distance themselves and wear masks and use proper hygiene, that they felt it was totally fine to have these events. I think I'm interested in how confident they were in the people of Tampa Bay.
Well, it seems confident enough. I obviously can't pretend to know what anybody is thinking. Asterisk, I'd like to point out that Diplo was on the cover of that issue that no one cared about.
Yeah, Katie. Katie's not going to let this issue go.
Okay. That's the last time I'll mention it ever, I promise.
Oh, please.
But today, I don't know if you saw that a show in April was announced that Insomniac is producing in Florida, in Orlando. I think it's a 1 or 2 day event, and Diplo, among others, is on the lineup. And so, I mean, I think Florida is just an interesting case in terms of their free-for-allness, and then the artists that see that sort of, the artists and promoters, because at this point, with Insomniac, we're talking about high-level promoters that sort of see an opening and are willing to go there. And it's legal, of course. Is it the right thing to do? I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion around, whether or not it's the right thing to do, but it seems like, they're taking the available opportunities, regardless of whether or not,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Florida is such an interesting test case. We'll have a Floridian on our show later, one and only Kat Bein. She can speak to this more perhaps. But Florida has been handling this differently from California, for example. From the beginning, Disney World has been open since the summer. Disney World in Orlando, Disneyland in Anaheim has been closed since March. So, apparently there wasn't a mass spike in cases in Florida, but it's not like there's robust contact tracing in the first place to really tell us if those Super Bowl weekend events were going to lead to anything. I'm frankly more intrigued by how Diplo played a Morgan Wallen track during that set.
Zel, do you want to explain the context of that happening?
Yeah, this was I think within a week or two of Morgan Wallen losing his record deal, his booking agent, I think his publicist, his whole the bottom dropped out of country singer Morgan Wallen's career because he had been saying the N-word casually and frequently recently, not back when he was a child and didn't know better. And this was after in the fall, he had lost his SNL gig because he had been making out with multiple girls at a college party, which when you're not a college student and you're going to college parties, you're gross. That's just, unless you're a high school kid, then you're really cool. But if you're out of college age you're hanging out at college parties. Anyway, yeah, and I don't know how you can interpret Diplo playing a Morgan Wallen track as anything other than a sign of support. We don't know if he's been playing that track a lot. He hasn't had shows that we could really assess that from, but
what he said in his statement, and I don't have the exact wording, but he said that, you know, he's had Heartless because it's this collaboration with Morgan Wallen, Heartless from his country album. He's had it in his set for, you know, probably a year or two at this point, you know, let's say 2 years, because obviously he hasn't really played a live set in the past year. And so, and you know, the irony of it was that I guess the transition was that he played Heartless and then faded into Kanye's Power. And so that was sort of an extra, you know, insult to injury moment for people. The way that he explained it was that, you know, that sort of transition, those two songs together, had been in his set for a long time.
Which is also a funny thing to admit as a DJ, about it. For a DJ to be like, right. Oh, I've been doing that exact same mix for over a year and haven't come up with anything. Like real DJs would be like, that's the problem. It doesn't matter what tracks they are. The fact that you...
Sure. It's problematic both ways. I would say you know, if what Diplo is saying is true, that's less problematic for sure. But you know, neither is the best.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting for an artist whose come up was popularizing, you know, Brazilian baile funk music through records by MIA, an artist of color, to now be playing at, you know, the most kind of homogeneously white audience in Florida, playing a country artist who everyone in that crowd knew had just been, quote, canceled. I think Diplo is making statements and perhaps out of both sides of his mouth.
Well, I think that, you know, you're absolutely right. Like there are just levels of it. This is not, you know, Diplo's been accused of appropriation many times throughout his career. So this is not sort of the first time what he's played or, you know, where that music has come from has been problematic. Obviously, this is a different context, but, you know, this is sort of an issue that is not haunted him, because I don't know that he really cares. But it's been a part of the conversation around him for a long time.
Yeah. In fact, after that weekend, I don't think that Diplo's team or Aoki's team cared about much. I'm sure they got paid well enough to make up for any kind of backlash they got about anything.
That's the thing, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know the numbers in anyone's bank account, but presumably those two artists don't need the paycheck from an errant Super Bowl weekend set. And so, you know, it seems that they're just playing because they wanted to, and someone told them they could, you know, and but they certainly didn't need the money.
No, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next 6 months as people test the waters for events. I saw one DJ I know posted his upcoming schedule and saying his upcoming live stream schedule, and said, as clubbing resumes here in North America, which I don't think is actually the case, but I guess for some people that's the perception. So, yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen any announcements that point to that. I've seen, as I'm sure you have, the announcements of, I think, 2 festivals that are going heavy on the testing and limiting capacity to numbers I'm not even sure, but, you know, like probably max a few thousand. But I haven't seen anything about clubs reopening beyond what's happening in the UK.
Yeah, that'll be another phase. When we come back, we'll talk about the big news of the end of another era. Kat Bein is with us to discuss Daft Punk. Don't kill the vibe. Right back.
Hold up.
We're back with Kat Bein, who's here to talk about all things Daft Punk. But first, Kat, you had something to say about Diplo.
I do. And Diplo's shitting his pants right now, but I'm just really disappointed, for all those racist reasons that you brought up and the Super Bowl spreader stuff as well. But I was disappointed because you were like, he moved from his song with Morgan Wallen, Heartless, into Kanye West's. And I was like, Heartless. And then you said Heartless. Power. And I was like, oh, well, that just seemed silly.
What a missed opportunity.
Yeah, like, okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, because if the song, if you said, name me a song, Heartless, you would think Kanye's song.
Yeah. And it's like, how could you be so heartless? Like, maybe that's the response from like the black man to this like racist, whatever. Not to get meta.
Yeah. I think we wish things for these artists they don't wish for themselves.
Anyway, like, shout out. But who is that thoughtful and high concept?
Tell us.
Daft Punk.
All right.
Beautiful segue, Kat. Thank you.
Kat, you got to ring the bells of, I guess, like benediction for Daft Punk's farewell this week. Tell us, if you will, in a nutshell, why it is that this is a bittersweet goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's like you said before the cutaway, it does seem to represent the end of an era, although it's strange because Daft Punk really lives in a few different eras, I think. I think it's just so strange to have something that has come to feel so ubiquitous and special to so many people dissolve into the ether, and particularly strange because I saw this great tweet that was like, Daft Punk not doing their job for 8 years and then announcing they quit is aspirational, which I thought was wonderful.
Well, Zel, you also kind of pointed that out today, but nothing actually happened.
Yeah.
They made an announcement, but nothing has changed except maybe our expectations. However, with all of the theories swirling about how this might not actually be a real end, I don't think the level of, rumor around them has been affected either. So not much has changed except that they've released a video and Kat wrote an excellent tribute to them.
I'm surprised how many people responded. Like people were like posting their memories of Daft Punk from childhood, like young adulthood, like it was as if they had died. And I could tell Daft Punk stories. I don't know. Is that why are we telling these Daft Punk stories? Nothing's happened.
I feel you on that. I also kind of, as like the biggest Daft Punk stan that I know, it's to the point where like liking Daft Punk has become a main personality trait of mine. And not that I like tell people that, but people just know. I got like 20 text messages and tweets that day. Like, are you okay? I just want to check in on you. And my thing.
I'm sorry that they weren't from us.
I know, no, it's fine. But what I thought was so funny about that is like, okay, but they're not dead. So like, it's not a bad day. And I have considered them retired for the last year or so anyway, because clearly they're not doing anything. But I think that I've had this conversation with a few people now, and it feels like it stopped being about two people and it started being about friendships that you have or moments that you've shared with people and that music, or where their music got you to in some roundabout way. I know that for myself, seeing them live was a huge moment in my life. I was just telling people that, in a very basic sense, I was this little goth kid who wore black every day for 8 years. And then I saw Daft Punk and I was like, fuck it, dude, let's wear colors all the time. Like, this is the future. And it definitely got me thrown into I was familiar with dance music growing up in the South Florida area, but I got really passionate about it when all this post Daft Punk sort of music like Justice and Boys Noise started coming out. And I feel like that was directly responsible for getting me to this place where I'm talking to you guys as a music journalist and really part of a community. I found a community in that. And I think that is what people feel, oh no, has something been lost? Because the weird shining hope that maybe they'll show up somewhere is gone. But I don't think that anything has been lost. I think you're totally right. All the music that they gave us, all the work that they did is still there, and it's for celebrating and having a good time with. And I mean, I think maybe they just want people to stop thinking they're going to show up at things like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyway, someone else talk. Sorry.
No. I think that speaks to, like, even if you're not a fan of Daft Punk, whatever your musical like affinity is, it does become less about the artist, less about the actual music, and more about the experiences you have through that music or with that music as the soundtrack. And that definitely makes it more, I guess, touching to think about.
But they're not dead, thank goodness. So it is kind of, but it would be actually very sad if it were like Tomargi passed away. Sorry, everybody, but they're just retired. They're just French and rich. So like,
and they've been rich for a long time. I mean, that's the funny thing is, like, I personally think this is a strategy to eventually get them a massive fee for a reunion show, probably at Coachella, because that'll be the only music festival left to afford it. And
the only music festival left
that can afford it. And the only fish left. Yes, that will be the only.
This is sad COVID joke, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys probably saw that already yesterday. I think box sets that had been going online for, let's say, $50 were 10 times that amount by the end of the day. Like the Daft Punk resale market has already been significantly altered. And so I'm with you, Zel. Like, whatever this is, like, they just increased any potential paycheck in the future by a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to be cynical. And there's a part of me that almost hopes that it, please, you go for it. I'll play on the other side and just say, like, I hope that it is real. Yeah. Because anything else would feel like
LCD sound system.
Yes, like LCD sound system. Like, we were taken advantage of, and even in a different way, because I don't think that LCD sound system, and I feel like I remember James Murphy saying this, like, it wasn't clear to him that they were always going to come back. And then after a few years, he kind of had, the idea that they would, or that, they did.
Yeah, it becomes clearer when Golden Voice is like adding zeros to the check. That's when it becomes a crystallized vision.
I'm now in the mood.
Yeah, you can only make so much money with artisanal coffee roasting.
Right. But this feels much more, if it is indeed a hoax, orchestrated in a way that I don't like.
Yeah.
And so there is a part of me that hopes that it's just a genuine retirement and we can sort of ease into that. But, I don't think the Daft Punk pandemonium.
Yeah.
Thank you. Will ever sort of, wane.
I don't even think it's a hoax. I think they are genuinely not working on Daft Punk music anymore. But I think that they weren't doing that too much in the first place anyway.
Yeah. Sure. They're like, let's make it official and set ourselves up for
and spike our streaming numbers for a few weeks. And it's a savvy move.
But I think also when you think about just how busy the rumor mill has been, even all this time, like this year it was 2020 as well. Daft Punk's in the studio, like, we know that, or like, oh, they're gonna do the next Tron soundtrack. Disney's bringing them back for another Tron, and there was all this. Making another
they would
movie.
Not. That the first Tron soundtrack was not like they did not have a great record of performing well on record like that. I know. I'm sorry, Kat, but like, no one wants another iteration of that Tron soundtrack.
I'm just saying, but the internet, these are all rumors that happened in the last like 6 months. And I could imagine if I were a famously adverse to fame and attention group, regardless of how famous and much attention they get, if you were like, I don't love this, and like, I don't know how much longer I have to do nothing for people to stop expecting me to do a trick.
Right.
Maybe you'd be like, I don't know, man, just throw a video up there and like.
They are. I will. I interviewed them in 2007. Helmets off. Yeah.
Jelly.
Oh.
Kat, who do you think you're on this call with? But they were very casual and very low key. The funniest thing about that was I ran into Guy-Man like a year later, and they are so used to people not recognizing them and not knowing who they are that he was very like confused when I recognized him and started talking to him, because they have really thrived in their anonymity, and like he was with his kids. It wasn't like, and I wasn't like being weird. I was just saying hello because it's rude if you don't, but it wouldn't have been to him because he didn't remember that he had met someone without his robot head on. And but I think that, you know, that's like a nice life to be able to create for yourself by producing a very small collection of very tightly made albums, building a massive global fan base, and then bowing out and, you know, finishing raising your kids in Laurel Canyon.
I also feel that, shout out Daft Punk for, I keep saying it's like they had they showed that you could have the perfect career. You could really rise to the top, never say something dumb because you're just not talking.
Yeah.
Maintain your privacy, finish on top. I don't know. Like they never had too bad of a moment. I mean, earlier in their career, it wasn't like everyone thought their albums were great until it became like they're geniuses. It wasn't always they're a genius, but they never had that like, oh, but you know, they should have given up a while ago. And now it's just a little uncomfortable watching them go through the motions, these robots or whatever. And shout out to them, you know, good for you guys.
So who is the next Daft Punk? And I think I'm not just saying like who's going to be the next French DJ duo superstar in robot heads, but is there an artist among us now who perhaps has released an album, maybe two, that's been somewhat well received, but has yet to rise to that level? Do we have some kind of game changing, mystique creating artist in our midst? Is it possible to have another one of those?
Well, that's an interesting question because they existed before sort of dance music as we know it hit the States and sort of set all these weird new precedents for stage design, for touring, for streaming numbers. Like, I don't know that anyone could create as much mystique by the modern standards that they didn't have to exist in when they were first starting out.
Right.
Yeah, hard to have mystique when you're on TikTok.
There is no mystique on TikTok. That's right.
No, there really isn't. Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously, like there are.
I don't know. I mean, I'm really trying to think of an artist that could like fill that void, but I mean, I don't know that anyone knows on their level.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm like Marshmello is not it. Can we just?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Marshmello's not it. But I mean, it's like,
no shade to Marshmello even, but like that's
no, it's a completely different vibe. Like Marshmello, you know, is you know, markets himself for children. Like Daft Punk was never really for children. Except, you know,
for the kids, but it's not just for the kids.
I also don't feel like Marshmello has necessarily ever heard of Frankie Knuckles. Like that's not apparent to me when listening to the pop records he produces.
Sure.
There's I keep saying that Daft Punk was really good about being intellectual without being pretentious and not losing accessibility. And I don't know.
Max's Memories was pretty pretentious, but
I guess, but it also had
they're
like
friends.
Fun,
it's just innately
songs,
pretentious.
You know, like
totally. They're just
I guess that's true. Well, maybe I'm just kinder to the French.
I mean, I'm not one to criticize pretension, but but yeah, I see what you're saying. They were always like creating something for a crowd, for an audience. It was to be danced to.
And I guess my comparison there is exactly like you said. You don't listen to Marshmello and feel like you're getting a history lesson of some kind. And
No.
I will always, I love that Daft Punk on their first album just had a song called Teachers, where they listed out like all these greats that came before them.
Yeah.
Like, yo, check it out. If you like this.
Totally.
It's a cool moment. But it's hard to, I'm sitting here thinking, and I think like, obviously so many groups have come after them and taken influence from their sound, their look, their style, whatever. But it is very difficult to think of a group that, or singular artists that would be that sort of game changer. And I think maybe it's hard to imagine a sound that feels so different. We've entered this realm where everything is mixing with each other, and it's rare. I guess it was always rare that you heard something really unique and stood out from the crowd, but
I also think it's hard to develop that kind of a sound when you are expected to release as frequently as artists are now.
Man.
Like,
Right.
to keep up with that cycle of, I mean, you know, if you don't have something on your Spotify within the last 6 months, your new release is delisted, and that's or not featured, I should say. Daft Punk had 6 years between their first and second albums, like that, and they kept their major label record contract during that time. That would just not happen now.
It's true.
Tell me if you guys feel like there's any weight to this. And I'm not saying that I think there is, but it's just something to float. Like, do you think that, they obviously didn't tour Random Access Memories. Like, do you think there was a potential, like, concern for even them of like, we just can't top what we've already done? Like, how do we even like come back or try? Because the bar is set so high that like they maybe couldn't go there again.
I think it was honestly, like, not to ruin the mystique, I think that they didn't want to go on tour when they had at that point kind of younger kids. I think the fact that so much of that album was with very integral collaborators, Pharrell, Nile Rodgers, Julian Casablancas, they couldn't tour with them. I think just the idea of doing it was going to just kind of undo some of the affection that people had for that album. But
sure,
I'm not the Daft Punk stan.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think both of those statements are probably a little bit true. And I also don't think that they probably love touring, because it's not like they toured all of their albums. They toured in 97. They released Discovery. They had their biggest hit stateside and they didn't do a tour. And then they did Human After All. And then from what I remember of the Coachella documentary and the Daft Punk documentary, it was like the Coachella people were really like, we want you to play a show. And they were like, okay, well, give us all your money and we'll put something together that'll be worth our time and effort or whatever. And so I never really got the impression that they were just like in love with that concept. And I think that they also probably have the prescience to say, hey, we did a really great job. It really impacted a lot of people. We don't have to. I mean, obviously everyone would love it, but even if they came back and they just did a live 2007 again, I think it would be different because it wouldn't have that same element of surprise, and it would be great, but it would be a little bit more expected, and everyone's done, the kitchen sink on stage now.
And to their credit, they take DJing seriously. And that was one thing I knew was, it's funny to think about it because it was such a controversial issue at the Live 2007 era, where people who had been longtime dance music fans were very concerned that people would be representing DJing on stage without actually DJing. And for Daft Punk, that was also important to them. Now, I don't think people care. I think if you are just up there pressing a button, as long as it looks cool and sounds good, people will generally be like fucking with it. And I think that's not something that's really like appealing to them, perhaps, or maybe the right offer hasn't been made for them to do it.
What would be, I guess, a fantasy would be them saying no to the Coachellas of the world and just doing a club tour where they can just purely DJ. Like that would be, I mean, you know, obviously the money situation is different and obviously probably not attractive to them for that reason. But like, I feel like that would be a cool way to come back without having to worry about all that bullshit.
Can I just ask both of you, do you miss being in nightclubs? It's been a year. Is it something you miss?
Are you gonna go first?
Cool. So I'm guessing that what feels the similar way.
Yeah. That's the truth. There it is.
Yeah. No, I keep saying to my roommates and stuff, I'm like, man, I've really settled into my like mid 30s here and it feels pretty good. I don't know how I'm going to like get back on the horse when it's time. And obviously, I mean, I will always be excited to go see the acts that move me and mean a lot to me. But I think the days where I was just going out to clubs because like someone was like, come through, or like I'm in town, whatever, you guys know what it's like when you're kind of living in this world too. And I don't know that I have that in me anymore. I think that,
there's so many things that are great about nights out and like being on a dance floor with a DJ playing. What sucks about all of that is the club culture that kind of sucks the life out of you when you're trying to do it. And if Daft Punk can come back and reinvent the experience of clubbing so it's not like so often heinous.
Oh my God.
No pressure, guys.
Yeah.
If anyone could, I'd
like it to be a little quieter, cleaner.
Earlier.
Drinks to be cheaper earlier.
Yeah, I know. I saw some silly thing about like, oh, maybe as part of COVID, it'll be like easing back in. All shows have to be over by midnight. And I was like, yeah.
Well, isn't it crazy that we used to do stuff at night? No. Like I end work at the, I finish work at the end of the day, and it baffles me that I used to then, put on a different outfit and go somewhere.
And now another outfit that's like nicer than the one you
totally.
had on.
I know.
Yeah.
It sounds just unfathomable to me right now.
At the end of the day now, it's like, I'd like to go from sweats to like more casual sweats.
A robe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have no judgments about that. I mean, I think, it's going to be a brand new world. So maybe we'll have different robots to play for us when that happens.
I was gonna say, I'll put a robot suit on and I'll play for you.
Yes. Kat Bein's the real Daft Punk.
I do want to just add one more thing before we wrap, because I'm sensing we're getting there. That in Kat's tribute yesterday, she pointed out something that I had never seen, which is the moment that they win the Grammy and the embrace that they have after winning before they walk onto the stage. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it, because as she wrote, I'm not going to get the words exactly right, but there is a lot in that embrace. And it really gave me goosebumps. It's like, it's a special moment in the history of Daft Punk. And I thought it was very poignant. So if you haven't seen it, thanks to Kat, we can all go check it out.
It's a good tribute. We'll be right back with some more vibes. All right, so what's everybody been listening to this winter? What's been your musical vibe? Kat, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, it's so funny. I always get scared when people ask me this question, and I always just go blank and say, I don't know, Drake still. But I really am like excited because I am probably late to the game, but I got super into Shy Girl over the last couple of weeks.
Nice.
And she's so amazing. I believe, get to write about Shy Girl for Billboard's Emerging Artists. I don't know if that is out or if I'm spoiling
tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Tomorrow.
It's not like we have to rescind it. So I've really been enjoying Shy Girl. What else have I been enjoying? Oh, well, I'm just going to shout this out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pusher. He's a fun kind of like in the vein of started off making stuff kind of like Wave Racer, like shiny, pretty video gamey stuff. And he has an album coming out soon that I got to listen to, and I love, it's like very themed around the apocalypse, and it's like a fun pop dance album, but everything's about like climate change and being addicted to your phone and just stuff I can really relate to. So shout out Pusher, and I'm sure there are other things, but Daft Punk, the new Mid album's coming out. I'm a big Ed Banger fan, so gotta plug the Ed Banger artist.
I feel like it's really a continuum for you from Daft Punk through
It
to
is.
yeah.
It's like they had me set up. They had me in theater school, and then they're right in there. It's like they did it for people like me. They're just like, okay, yes, right this way. We've got more artists for you. Congratulations.
You were effectively indoctrinated, and
I have been it's the brainwasher.
Yeah, I love it. Katie,
what about you guys though? I'm such a bad music
that was great.
That was great.
Katie, what's your rotation been?
I also get a little nervous with this question, Kat. So we're in the same boat. It's not new. I think it came out last fall, but I am still listening to the Closey album a lot. It hits a really sweet spot for me, which is sort of this, I hesitate to use the word ethereal, but maybe in this case it's correct. It's like ethereal bass that's still pretty hard hitting, but smart and feminine. And I think that she's really, really talented. And I think that this is like her best work yet. So that's been a good one for me. And then also this label Disco Halal. Have you guys heard any of stuff? It's Moscow Man.
It's fantastic.
He's fantastic. His taste is fantastic. Disco Halal released a single called Bad Romance. I want to say last month or, a few weeks ago. By these, I believe, 2 Russian DJs, Entourage and Alexei Union. And this song it gives me really like Dark Side vibes and Nicholas Jar vibes. Very sort of like sexy desert sort of blues guitar riffs. Really good. And so I'm liking everything that's coming out on that label right now.
Nice.
I
feel both of your because I know because I get asked all the time, what are you listening to? And a lot of times people are genuinely asking for a recommendation. And so I'm usually I usually tell them something kind of like just banal, just to kind of, because I can't think of anything in the moment, but I can be honest here amongst friends. I've been listening to the Bicep album. I think it's great. And it's
so good.
I love that there's like a backlash. There's like a Bicep backlash amongst like the techno elites who like used to embrace Bicep, but now they've gotten too mainstream, which is really amazing since there's absolutely
what does that even mean? Because the Guardian wrote about them? Like,
I think so. I mean, they haven't, it's not like they're charting or significantly. It's not like they're touring, major clubs and festivals right now. But anytime there's a backlash from the techno elite, there's probably some good music there. So
some happening. Watch for those riffs. That's how you know.
But that's been my that's been my go-to album so far in 2021.
Good one.
Yeah, but I'm also curious, what are we going to do this summer when we have another year without live events, except for maybe some potential super spreaders here and there?
Are you asking what each of us personally plans to do?
Yeah. How are we?
I'm going to go play a club in Tampa. That's what I'm gonna do. No,
she's gonna do her Heartless back to back to back to back.
Yeah, I'm gonna show Diplo how it's done. Okay?
It's gonna be a Heartless mega mix.
Take it away.
Both native Floridians. So.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well. That sounds like a better plan than what Wes is going on. So.
No, I actually. This is exciting. Is it summer for Mother's Day? It is, right? May.
Yeah, spring. But sure.
You're almost there. Yeah.
I'm going to go to Yosemite for the first time with my mom. That'll be really fun.
Nice.
You're going to love it.
With a mask on, outdoorsy stuff. And I don't know, is this where I plug my Twitch stream? Because I'll be doing that over the summer.
Plug away.
Yeah, I have a quarantine project where I interview people on Twitch because why not? And that's called Cat Calls, and it's on twitch.tv/KATBEIN. You gotta love it, folks.
Kat,
and I do other streams too. But
yeah, when you were creating Cat Calls, were you like calling back to? It seems like it refers to like an adolescence where you were a girl on the phone a lot. Is that an accurate imagination of what your childhood was like?
I Love that. Yeah, I think a little bit, but also totally like, I'm just such a fan of, I mean, honestly, it was just like, oh, I love doing interviews. And I always thought it would be kind of fun to bring that to life in some way outside of just transcribing them and typing them up. And the quarantine offered some downtime. And I was looking at Twitch and I was like, that seems fun. But I also just really love the whole vibe of old MTV style stuff where it's really casual and kind of off the cuff and a little bit more personal and kooky. You know, I'm kooky. That's just the way it goes.
That's just what we get.
Yeah, but I enjoy that it is like pretty chill. I'm always telling people like, this is the vibe. It's not going to be any more formal than this right now. So don't expect that.
We appreciate you joining us today for our vibe. It's nice to revive the vibe with you. You guys are the OGs. I was an avid listener of Don't Kill the Vibe back when it was happening before. And I want everyone to know that this is the place to be, people. This is where you get the news and you get the sass. It's a good program.
I'm news and Zel is sass.
You know, sometimes it's the other way around, but
that's totally right.
Generally, that is,
and I enjoy that too.
Yeah. Thanks so much,
What
Kat.
are you guys doing? You didn't say what you're doing this summer.
Well, we are
doing this show.
Look, I'm perfectly fine waiting until, you know, we get the all clear from Anthony Fauci. I just feel like going out and taking risks is a privilege that I should not be exercising if I don't have to. So, you know, rave in my living room for one or two, you know, depending. No, it's usually just one.
Zoomy raves. Remember when everyone was really about the Zoomy raves at the beginning?
Oh my God.
You're like, this is the future. And then it was like, all right.
People were doing a new mix every week, a new song recorded every day, a new, like, come on. Where are you at now?
There's a lot. Where are you now when I need you?
Yeah.
That would be so funny. Where are they now for like 6 months ago? All these people and their big plans. Yeah.
Brutal.
Oh, boy.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kat. Don't Kill the Vibe was recorded live, remotely and socially distanced. Our creator and executive producer is Alex Munoz. Our theme music today is from the Funk Hunters and Moontricks with Get Up and Go, Goddexx, formerly known as Diana Boss, Thicc Honey, and Sparkee and Def 3, Feelin Right.
And thank you to our guest, Kat Bein. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at DKTV Podcast, and listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm feeling right tonight. I'm feeling right tonight. I'm feeling right. You feeling right? I'm feeling right. I'm feeling right tonight. I'm feeling right tonight.